It's our big five stories of 2022. We're each taking a look at the top headlines from the past year. Jesse, you go first.
War in Ukraine just dominated the spring season. We covered it wall to wall here on Fox News Channel. You haven't seen tanks in the European theater like that for decades. It really shocked the country, shocked the world that you would see that type of brutality again in that part of the world. The stock market took a hit. Energy prices were affected, supply chains, food prices. It's really scrambled the entire European energy policy. And we're still feeling the repercussions of it. And it's a cold winter. It's going to continue, could continue for years. You never know how it's going to play out. But this was the story of the year, according to Jesse Waters.
Okay, Dana?
Well, I agree certainly on Ukraine, and the ramifications of that are going to continue through 2023, as is the story that I chose, which is the one on the border, the southern border. Just a couple of points here. In all of 2020, there were 458,000 encounters at the border. We are 2.5 months in to fiscal year 2023, and there are already 505,000. That's not counting 140,000 gotaways. Fox News has covered this story every single day. It is astounding to me how every morning on America's Newsroom, we can turn to Bill Maloogian or Griff Jenkins or Nate Foy, whoever's down on the border for us, and you can see, oh, Dana, Bill, 300 migrants just came across, and it's daybreak over here in Eagle Pass, Texas, or Del Rio. It's also happening in Arizona, New Mexico, and California. And this is also not just bringing immigrants who are illegally entering the country. They now are fanning out across the country. So every state, every locality is affected by it, every school, every hospital, and there's no end in sight. And we are about to have a big change in this country as you see some of the protections and reasons that we could turn away migrants as being blocked by courts. That'd be Title 42, which was the public health issue. So now you are looking at having thousands of migrants every day coming into the country. I have never been somebody who's like, oh, we're for open borders. To me, it feels like the border is totally open. And I'm just shocked that you have a commander-in-chief who has turned a blind eye to it. And just think about this. Anybody who traveled over the holidays, or if you have plans in the future, you're going to go through TSA. You're going to have to take off your belt, take off your shoes, put your stuff through security. And why do we do that? To keep us all safe. And this is an agreement we have all made. And we might think it's really annoying, but we all do it. There were 98 people caught last year that were on the terrorist watch list. Those are the ones that we caught at the border. With 1 million gotaways, all said, how many others are there? And we're not doing enough to protect this country, not only from all the problems that it could lead to in regards to your social structure, but also I think the worry is from a national security perspective. And as Jesse pointed out earlier in the month, we have a situation with a narco state on our southern border. This is a huge story, and what's shocking is that there's not more reporters willing to cover it.
You know what? It is a huge story, Dana, and the craziest part of it is that we have basically lost our sovereignty as a nation. We are no longer a sovereign nation. We are nothing more than a global landing spot for anyone who wants to come here. And, just last week I was listening, and there was something like in 1 week, people from 96 different countries arrived through the border illegally. And but Tyrus, what's your take on the border and what Dana's talking about?
Well, the border, I think, has also been, and I'm using the term, it's like a gateway for what we're seeing, a ripple down effect across the country, because it leads to so many other things. Now, I'm not saying that everyone who crosses the border, to Dana's point, is a criminal or a terrorist, but it does lead, because that border also, we have all the fentanyl coming in. So we're creating more problems for our residents. And the neighborhoods that are directly next to the border are overwhelmed. The cities and towns are overwhelmed with no help in sight.
Jessica, the sad part about it is now that so many people are coming through with with Title 42 basically being eliminated, we're hearing about people who are sleeping on the streets where there are not enough beds. It's cold in Texas right now.
Right.
And I mean, the humanitarian way to handle it would be to at least create some kind of safety net for them.
Well, that's what happened. Before the numbers skyrocketed to these levels, there was this push to build enough facilities. And then we found out that 1,500 beds aren't enough because you're getting 3,000 people a night. And what are you to do about that? And you used exactly the right word, humanitarian. So whatever kind of crisis you want to have, if you want to have a national security crisis, that's fine if that's how Republicans want to talk about it. But Democrats, if you want to talk about it from the human level, that's just as important as what's going on the national security side, because there are people who are becoming homeless. There are people who are being raped coming across here, people who are selling their children. There are people just flat out dying, making this very, very dangerous journey.
So then, Jesse, why is the administration not addressing the issues that Jessica's talking about?
Well, it's part strategy, part incompetence. They wanted to do the exact opposite of what Trump did. And they want cheap labor for their donors. And they also want new voters. And they want people to come here and have babies. That's what AOC and Schumer said.
Yeah.
All part of a plan. So they're either executing the plan or they don't know what they're doing. Either way, it's not good.
It isn't. Anyway,
I missed that plan, just putting that out there.
On to my story of the year. My story of the year has to do with Elon Musk exposing Twitter. I think this is the biggest story of the year because for centuries, as Americans, in fact, this country was founded on the concept of free speech, the First Amendment, the ability to say what you want. And that First Amendment doesn't just address you and I speaking. It addresses the power of the press and the ability of the press to not suffer from prior constraints. And what we had in America and what we saw as a result of Elon Musk exposing what was going on at Twitter was that there was prior restraint. There was suppression of free speech. There was suppression not only of free speech, but suppression in one direction so that there would be an election impacted in one particular way and not both ways. And I think that this chilling censorship indicates, to me, the end of a democracy. Just as with the border, we are now no longer a sovereign nation, but a globalist landing spot with benefits. We now have a press that is not holding up its part of the deal as the fourth estate that all of us as Americans relied on to kind of check what government was doing, to be that fourth estate. It's not happening anymore. And when the head of Twitter was called before Congress, he lied. He lied under oath. Now, he can say right now, oh, I didn't know what was going on at my own company. Hogwash. You knew, Jack Dorsey, why you were called before Congress. You knew the issue had to do with Hunter Biden. And you knew that there was, 51 officials, intelligence officials who said it looked like intel, like Russian disinformation. So you knew there was an issue there that you had to address before you went to Congress. But no, you put your hand down, you swore to tell the truth, and you lied. And so the search results being manipulated that affected a federal election, the end of the First Amendment, to me, is one of the biggest stories, not only of 2022, but of the century so far. What say you, Jesse?
I agree. And in 10 years, we may even see this being bigger because things are still coming out. And Elon confessed, he said, I'm here to save democracy. I'm here to save free speech. And the fact that he plowed, $44 billion into this thing and then just kind of wrestled it away from the grip of the FBI, the CIA, the Democratic National Committee shows you how fast we were veering towards not the republic that we know and love. And thank you to Elon Musk for doing that. Everybody owes this guy a big debt of gratitude.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. Dana, what's your take on it?
Well, I think that we were in this middle of, if you look back in history, at New Year's is a good time to do that. And you think back not only to just the past year, but just as in the scope of things to come. I think when the history books are written, people will look back at this period and say social media had been given this free reign for a while because nobody knew what it was going to be like. And then it turns out to be something that we realize, oh gosh, that's not very good. In fact, it's actually leading to destruction of some parts of our democracy. And so Elon Musk takes a pin and bursts the balloon, and now we can all have a chance to regroup. And I think in the next year, you might see some attempts by Congress to do something about it. However, Congress is always behind the times when it comes to technology. And the private sector will have creative destruction and create something new. And that's something that Elon Musk is doing.
All right, Tyrus, your reaction?
Woke martyrdom. That's what they're going to say it was. It wasn't about Hunter Biden. It was always one thing. The mission was simple. You have to stop President Trump. For whatever reason, all the things that he was going to drain the swamp, he did not realize how deep the swamp was and how many monsters were in it. And they came out. And their whole thing, no matter how they look at it, yes, we use the FBI. Yes, but we did it. Our greater good was we had to stop President Trump. And we saw it the entire time, and it worked. So you will not see any, oh, I'm sorry's. You will not see any of that. And they weren't necessarily Democrats. These are just this woke group that has decided what the country needs because they virtue signal. They know what's best, even though it wasn't for the best. And we're seeing the results of that. So it will always be called the woke martyrdom. But when you look back at this in 10 years, President Trump, I think the light is going to be very different on him based off all the evidence we're starting to see.
All right, Jessica, your big story for 2022.
So my big story was the red wave that wasn't, or maybe Joe Biden isn't that bad. That's kind of how I call it. So I think there are three main takeaways from the midterm results, and we all know that we're just constantly in campaign mode. And what did we get off? A few days before we started going into what's going to happen in 2024. But there were some pretty big lessons from it. So the first, which I already referenced, maybe Joe Biden isn't that bad. Maybe, and Jesse, I thought one of the points you made a couple months ago was really salient, which is people just don't hate him the way that they hate other leading Democrats. You do try, and sometimes you succeed. I know, but it's a really important point that he doesn't raise this level of ire or animosity as a Hillary or a Barack Obama, and we can talk about why that may be. I think most people understand certainly why I think that is. So Joe Biden had the most successful midterm since the 1930s. It's a really big deal. So there's a House majority for the Republicans, very slight. Kevin McCarthy not being able to corral the caucus as he expected. So that's a really interesting aspect of it. The two other things that I think are important out of the midterm results. First of all, the importance of the issue of abortion, that the Dobbs ruling may not have been the gift for Republicans that they thought that it was. And I understand that for a lot of pro-life activists, that this is the long game, right? That it's not about winning an election today or in 2 years, 4 years, whatever it is. It's about protecting life and the way that they see it. But people showed up, Democrats, a lot of Republicans, a lot of moderates, and said that what's going on in very conservative states is unacceptable. You'll see a lot more of these referendums, like in Kansas and Kentucky, Michigan. And you had Jim Messina on America's Newsroom right after, where he said, yeah, we're going to run the table on this and make sure that everyone votes on it. The third point that's important, Donald Trump's impact on the midterms was terrible, just like it was in 2020. Lost the Senate again as a result of hand-picked candidates that he thought were great. And that ended up being really terrible. And I know that he's declared to run for president, but right now it looks like a campaign in name only, and he's losing a lot of salience in the party.
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. The border is open. We have no free speech. Yeah.
All right.
Democrats won.
What's your big story
Again,
for 2022?
Crime and homelessness, and I think they go hand in hand. We've seen more videos this year of just Americans just being awful to each other and little or no consequences. The no cash bail has hurt a lot of families, it's destroyed businesses. And again, this is where I talked about the border. Fentanyl coming in, fentanyl and meth are now the two leading causes of homelessness in this country. Yeah. Those numbers have like almost doubled. Probably by the time in a few months from now, they'll triple because people, and no, there's no help. There's no media attention to it. We don't see it. China manufactures it. They send it to Mexico to be made, and then it comes to America and it kills our kids. And the ones who aren't being killed by it, they end up so strung out, and we see the zombies walking the streets, and everyone doesn't do it. It's not until, unfortunately, they die that somebody cares enough to talk about them. No one's making the effort. The media is not interested in it. I am one of the things that I was very proud about being a Fox News contributor is that we did talk about it. We kept bringing it up, and it needs to be, and it's very simple. You have to cut the snake's head off. And where do you do that? One, you pick up the phone and you tell China, stop sending that stuff. Two, I know Gutfeld likes to bomb things. I like to target things. You can drop little in Spanish waivers all over these little factories where they make this stuff and let them know that a missile's coming your way on this day where you can blow up these spots. These are terrorists. If these were in Iraq or these were in Afghanistan, they were making these plants and sending it over here, we would do something about it. So something needs to be done, but I'm glad at least they're getting a voice here because this story should have been the top story because who were the victims? Our American citizens and our kids, and there's just not enough voices for them.
Yeah, great segment.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.